My name's Angel. I'm from Amarillo, and I weigh and measure 3 meals a day from GreySheet. Write them down. I commit them to my sponsor, and I don't eat between meals no matter what. Um, so, experience, strength, and hope is how I kind of structure my stuff. It's a lot, so I will talk fast, but um, I don't like the video. It's very distracting for me. um, all right. So I was born underweight to an obese mother. I was diagnosed with ADHD and undiagnosed with anxiety at the age of 5. Um, when I talked to my sponsor about qualifying, my first one, I just puked it all out. And I've learned since then that it's more, we need to concentrate on the general things instead of the story. Everybody has a story, and but not everybody has recovery. And so that's what I try to focus on that. But there's a lot of stuff in here. So at the ages of 7 to 9, there was a molestation that occurred by a family friend. Feelings of shame because I enjoyed it, not knowing why, but knowing I had done something wrong. And I don't tell you this to gain sympathy because we all have trauma and we all had, developed poor coping mechanisms because of this. Uh, and we learn to protect ourselves from either feeling or not feeling. And so, as a 7-year-old, um, at that time, the only way I had to numb those feelings was to eat. And I found that method of coping most likely because my mom and my aunt had the same coping mechanisms, uh, mm, most likely due to the same reasons because generational trauma is real. Um, I remember seeking approval from my parents because I cleaned my plate. I think because they had seen me so thin that they worried. So they offered support. But in my people pleasing manner, I took it a little bit too far. I ate because I felt overwhelmed. I did not know how to handle the emotions of the molestation, the anxiety, the constant motor, and the motor of ADHD. I ate because my father's health conditions led to a childhood of uncertainty. I might have eaten because eating was a celebration. And growing up poor, we used food to celebrate when you had money. So it was always a fun time. And uh, eventually, my mom was able to get a better job. My dad was able to be approved for his Social Security disability. And so we kind of rose up out of poverty to lower middle class. And with that came a new school. With that came the beginning of the molestation period. With it became bullying for my weight eventually. With it, I had to start wearing a bra in second grade because genetics and being pudgy kind of required it. And with it came buffets where my parents still encouraged and praised me for eating so much because, or at least that was my perception of it, because that, seeing me that thin, they thought they were doing good. I was bullied, but they also say I was a bully as well. I was acting out, made horrible grades. Um, but right before fifth grade, my parents had saved enough money to put a down payment on a home and some land out in the country, and it was the best thing that they could have ever done for me. And we moved away from the bullies and the molester, and I found God in church and nature when I went hiking. It was the first time I experienced a relationship with my HP. However, it was the worst thing they could have done for my parents. They were so proud of their dream, but with it brought poverty again, living on the edge of the Muskogee Creek Reservation. Um, there was not enough money for the upkeep, and my dad's failing health. Basically, my brother and I had to take on the physical things that he and my mother wanted to achieve or needed to achieve. And so there was a lot of, responsibility. I still ate. Unfortunately, it was the boxes of bags of cheap processed food in order to make the protein go further. It was Indian commodities. I know I don't look Indian. It's not because I was Indian, it was because all my friends were Indian. And that was a commodity. That was a, you sold your commodities for gas money. So um, my mother, my dad couldn't stand anymore, so he couldn't cook the food. My mom couldn't stand very long, so she would make huge batches of this stuff, and we'd eat on it until it was gone. Um, she was also morbidly obese and in poor health. But unfortunately, due the lack of social circle for my dad started him in a downward spiral of depression. And the best I can describe it is the moving What's Eating Gilbert Grape. Um, it was like he was so bitter that he wanted to take it out on us. He would threaten to commit suicide over and over if he did not get his way. The man that I loved and worshiped slowly slipped away and left behind someone I became a parent to. At 13 years of age, my relative of 23 years old molested me and repeatedly tried to get me alone with him. He would actively try to set up additional meetings. Thankfully, while I was stupid enough to be roped in by him once, I never let my self be alone with him again. Unfortunately, it put into perspective what had happened when I was, younger. I had overwhelming feelings of hatred towards myself. I ate because I hated myself. I loathed myself for being so stupid, and something changed, and I began to control my environment. I could control everything in my life except my compulsion to eat and the feelings. I continued to eat to numb, but I also felt strong, like, muscle strong. I felt if I was strong and not what they wanted, they would leave me alone. I controlled everything from my room to perfect grades in school, uh, and coming from, CDs and Fs in grade school, that was great. To the fact that I kept taking more and more on to help my parents, you know, um, things like cleaning the house, mowing. Um, we had wood heat, so you'd have to bring in the wood, the kindling. And I also picked up odd jobs, like hauling hay and cantaloupe and watermelon and firewood, because that was the only job I could get way out there in the country. But it made me feel so independent and very strong. It also made me feel like I was someone because my parents depended on me. So as you can see, there's a lot of weird emotions that we just develop, um, and we're skewed. The emotions eventually from all of that became a kind of like a maelstrom, and at 16 I tried to commit suicide. Couldn't show emotion to my dad. By then he would use it against you. I had things coming down on me from all directions, and I felt so overwhelmed, and he just made it worse by constantly picking at me. Thankfully, the gun did not go off, and then I lost my nerve. I wanted to hurt my parents for the chaos. I wanted to hurt myself because I could not stop eating, and I wanted to hurt myself because I was so stupid to let these things happen to me. Things leveled out a bit. Um, my senior year, I'd been dating a guy, and because I was on track to go to college with a full scholarship, I did not want to mess that up. So I started taking birth control. Um, I uh, I gained about 50 pounds. Uh, Most of my senior year was a fog. I went from 180 pounds to 280 pounds in that couple of years after high school graduation. I was not as physical as I'd been, and I was attending nursing school and failing. All I wanted to do was sleep and eat, and alcohol didn't work. And later it's because I found out my stomach was so large. Um, I dropped out of college because of the depression, and because of a prayer and an answer, I stopped taking the birth control, and the old me was back. I still had the weight, and the compulsion was stronger than ever, and I would try everything, but the compulsion would get me every time. I would pray and pray, but was never relieved of this particular compulsion. A divorce, return to community college, then on to state college, the death of my grandmother, my daddy, my student loan money set aside for the board, gone because I had to pay for the funerals, left me where I had to make a decision, and I became a truck driver. I meant to do it only long enough to save money to go back to college, and I ended up being out there 13 years. Um, I Um, it was really impossible to try to resist some of that stuff because
That's 10 minutes, Angel.
I knew it. So in 2012, I came off the road and became a dispatcher. I gained a lot of weight, bad marriage, um, and by 2016, I'd ballooned up to 397 pounds. I decided to take my 401k money because I felt like if I didn't do it now, I was not going to live around to be able to use it. I got the duodenal switch, which means that they remove most of your stomach and bypass most of your small intestines. Um, it worked. But I only lost 100 pounds for $30,000. That's all I lost. And when you're 397 pounds, that's only a drop in the bucket. And it had started coming back. Um, I was desperate to lose weight. I had a bulging disc that had been bothering me, and I was terrified of having to depend on somebody to take care of me instead of being independent. Um, the the food plan on a lot of these diets would work until you introduced the starches and carbs back in. And I didn't know that at the time. I didn't realize that other people were out there that had the similar um, thought about food addiction, that you could be addicted to it. But I mean, what are you going to do? Because you still have to eat. Um, and I remember having a neutrality towards food after that surgery. And that term is what I used when I was looking on Google for something that was similar to that post-op diet plan. And that's how I came across Gray Sheet. I read the doctor's opinion and it was like they were writing it about me. I had a great sponsor. She was there for me. She'd had gastric bypass, but I had a lot of day ones and I kept feeling like I was failing her. My life was very chaotic, and so I ended up breaking up with her, whatever you call it. Great sponsor. It's just one of those deals that I felt like if I couldn't do it perfectly, I didn't do it at all. Um, I now have 292 days, 9 months. My abstinent date is March 27, 24. I have a wonderful, beautiful, accomplished new sponsor who was there on the very first meeting. I discovered that we have all gone through trials and tribulations, but for whatever reason, when we learned our coping mechanisms, we used food to feel in control or to numb. Earlier, I mentioned that the generational trauma is real, but staying mired in that trauma is on me, and I can continue to let my past define me, uh, or I can take her by the horns and make her my bitch. I don't know what to tell you, but I'm learning to cope with my emotions that I used to stuff down with the program, and the food helps me with the compulsion. So it's like diabetes. You take the insulin for the symptom, and then you modify your diet to live the rest of your life around it. And I've learned so much. I'm a people pleaser. I didn't know that. GreySheeters taught me that. I'm also a perfectionist. I knew that, but I didn't know how. I thought that was a good thing. I thought it was a superpower. I still struggle to lose weight because I have Hashimoto's and PCOS, and in the past 2 years, I'm in menopause. But I try not to focus on that because um, having that cacophony of sound muted um, is what keeps me coming back, because there's so many things I've learned about how I can, controlled situations, and didn't even know I was doing it. I you know I knew nothing about addiction. I didn't know people that were, drug addicts or alcohols or any of that stuff. And so I've been leading 2 meetings, and I don't like the anxiety it causes for me to be out there in front of people because they're going to see me fail, but they're also going to see me succeed as well. And now with this program, seeing people succeed, I'm so excited whenever somebody's like, I have 7 days, and I'm like, yes. And anyway, wait, sorry, that ADHD just leaped out there. But
Angel, that's
is learning. Thank you. I'll just end with this is learning from others can attest. They say that by staying in the middle of the herd, you get support. You have no other option than to be carried along by the herd. I no longer think for myself. I let others make those decisions because I have a history of not being able to make those decisions. And that is okay. It just makes me human to need help. My name is Angel. I'm from Amarillo. I'm in Central Standard Time.